10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 301. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 301 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us again. And this week we are going to finish off our long series on the tritone substitution with another tune of the month, this time over rhythm changes. Really excited to present this stuff to you. One of my favorite progressions, and just a progression that's ripe with opportunity for us to use our newfound knowledge of the tritone substitution. So as always, before we get into the show, just wanted to remind you this is a listener-supported show, which means we do not do advertisements on the program. Instead, we rely on the generosity of listeners just like you. And the platform that we use so you can support the show is Patreon. You can find that by going to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon banners, and you will find out all the information on how you can support the show for a very, very small amount of money each and every month. So a quick shout out to our new patrons this week. Thank you to our new $5 patrons, Colin and Chad. Thank you to our new $3 patrons, Ralph and Scott. And thank you to Carol for upgrading your pledge from $3 to $5 to get those extra benefits. You do get a PDF with every single episode, and the $5 patrons get audio examples as well. And again, if you'd like more information and you want to sign up to support the show, go to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, and get yourself signed up today. All right, let's dive into the meat of the episode. So I've prepared another etude for you this week, this time over one chorus of rhythm changes, and we have done all kinds of tritone substitutions all over this. The beauty of rhythm changes is that there's so many cadences, and they're extended cadences. So for example, we have a lot of 3, 6, 2, 5, 1s, and then we also have that beautiful bridge, which is just the circle of force, which gives us even more opportunity to use our tritone substitution. So what I'd like to do first is play a slow version of the etude at 120 BPM, just so you can get the sound of this etude in your ears, and then we are going to go through each section and chat a little bit about it. We're going to talk a little bit less in depth this week about what I'm doing with the substitutions, because what I really want is for you to go through and analyze things yourself, figure out where and why I'm using those tritone subs. And at this point, you should have a pretty good knowledge of where to use them. So I want to sort of turn you loose and have you test yourself on your knowledge of where you can put those tritone substitutions this week. But enough talking from me. Let's hear our slow version of the etude. Right, so you can hear some of the things that I'm doing, or hopefully you can hear some of the things that I am doing. And again, I just want to remind you that this is an educational exercise. So if I was soloing, I would not use every single opportunity for a tritone sub because it just becomes a little bit heavy-handed. And I'm sure when you listen to that etude, you understand that it is a little bit heavy-handed and not necessarily how you would want to solo in real life. But again, we're studying the tritone substitution, so we want to use it every single opportunity that we get for now. Okay, so let's dive right into the first A section. So what you'll notice is that I basically took every opportunity that I had for a 5 chord, with the exception of 1 or 2, and I replaced every single 5 chord with its tritone substitution. So this particular 8 bars with the subbed out chords sounds something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And what you can hear in that 8 bars is that we get a lot of really, really nice half-step motion when we are subbing out the 5 chords. And after all, that is kind of the point of the tritone substitution, is that we're replacing the circle of fourths with half-step motion. All right, let's go on to the second A section. And I've basically done the same thing with this. I've replaced a few more of those 5 chords, and I've also replaced a lot of the 2 chords, so the minor chords. So basically, I'm just getting a little bit more complicated. I am leaning on that tritone substitution a little bit more heavily at this point, and you're going to notice that there's a little bit more tension in this particular A section. Here's the progression with all the subs for the second A. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that one has a completely different sound, even though we are still relying on those tritone substitutions to give us our tension and release. That one just goes a lot further. Okay, so now we're going to dive into the bridge. And as you know, the bridge just goes up to the third and then it moves around the circle of fourths. So what I've done is in the first line of the bridge, I've done a tritone sub for 2 beats before the next chord. So I've really backloaded all the tension. And then starting in measure 21, which is the second half of the bridge, what I've done is I've used a substituted chord for an entire measure. So it's 1 measure of the original chord, 1 measure of the sub, and therefore I've spread out the tension a little bit more. So here is what the bridge sounds like with all the substitutions. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can hear how those give 2 different effects, whether I wait until beat 3 in the second measure, or whether I fill the entire second measure with a tritone substitution. That is going to give a bit of a different sound, which is just another way to use this and to think about it. Be creative with the way that you're using your tritone substitutions. All right, let's move into the last A section. So in this one, I've done a little bit of a combination of just replacing the 5 chord or replacing both the 2 and the 5 chord. And this one gives us a little bit of a different feel. It just goes to show you how many different possibilities there are. So here's the last A section. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, one of the things that I love about rhythm changes is that people play them in so many different ways. If you were to talk to a bunch of professional jazz musicians, they would all give you a slightly different chord progression that they use for rhythm changes. For instance, some people really like for the first four bars 1 6 2 5, 1 6 2 5. And then other people like to go 1 6 2 5 3 6 2 5. And that's kind of all up to your personal preference. It'll give you a little bit of a different sound depending which one you use, but it will still sound like rhythm changes regardless of which one of those that you use. And I think that this approach of using substitutions rather than trying to think about hitting all the tensions in each chord, just sub it out for a different chord. I really like that. That works well with my brain. So I use this approach when I am playing over rhythm changes and I want to play something a little bit more interesting than just the core changes. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to play the etude, but at 160 BPM, which is much more what I was thinking when I wrote this. You know, rhythm changes are usually played at a bit of a faster tempo the majority of the time. So when I was writing this etude, I was thinking more at this tempo, and I think you're going to hear that it works a little bit better at a bit of a faster tempo. So here's the etude again, 40 clicks faster than you heard it before. So you can hear that faster version is a little bit less heavy-handed, or it sounds a little bit less heavy-handed because the chords are going by a little bit faster, and that works better for these kind of substitutions. So I think your goal should be to get it to that 160 tempo when you're practicing this, because I really think that's going to give you the full effect. That's going to give you the best effect of these substitutions, where I use them, why I use them, all that kind of stuff. So your job is to analyze why I am using the substitutions that I am. Remember, they are all marked in red, so you'll be able to find them, no problem. Then I want you to work the etude up to 160 BPM, and then I want you to improvise just using the chord changes from the etude and see if you can start putting some of those substitutions in yourself and working them into an improvised solo with the knowledge you've gained from this series, okay? All right, let me know if you have any questions. Remember, the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson community Facebook group is a great place to get in touch, or you can always email me at 10minutejazzlesson.com. Remember, if you're not signed up already and you want to get your hands on that PDF, you can do so by going to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon banners, get yourself signed up, and you get instant access to all 301 episodes that we have ever done. So there is an absolute mountain of material over there when it comes to jazz education. All right, I'm going to close out the show by doing exactly what I asked you to do. Here's 2 courses of me improvising over rhythm changes with the subbed out changes, and you'll see that I struggle in some places, and I only did 1 take of this just to kind of show you that it is hard. It is hard to catch all of this stuff, but it's a really, really worthwhile thing to do. All right, as always, hope you're staying safe and healthy out there, and we will see you next week with another brand new episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon, everybody. Bye.